This is the Lucid Gravity, a new 3-row all-electric SUV from the American automaker. The Gravity takes learnings from the award-winning Air sedan and applies them into a new form factor, and we're about to take a look around the Gravity and go for a drive. The Gravity certainly has a somewhat unconventional shape for a 3-row SUV. It's much less boxy than other EVs you see on the market. And key to that is this very short dash to axle ratio. That is a term that automotive design nerds use to describe the distance from the base of the windshield to the top of the wheel. Here it's practically non-existent, and what that allows is for the Gravity to be relatively short overall, but optimizing interior space, which is one of Lucid's key objectives in designing the Gravity. Along the side, we see a lot of sculpting and form similar to the Air, emphasizing the Gravity's large wheels. Along the top, we have this bright anodized aluminum bar, which will also be available in a dark stealth finish. And the design team really worked to make the shape of this bar give the Gravity a sleek form, while also allowing it to optimize its aerodynamics to give the vehicle its impressive 450-mile maximum range rating. I have to say as well, this new Aurora Green paint, which is one of the new paint colors option for the Gravity, looks very fetching on this 3-row SUV. At the rear, we again see lighting similar to on the Air sedan, but now with more dimensionality and depth as Lucid has evolved its design language slightly. Here inside the Gravity, we see some forms and details which look similar from the Air, but Lucid has worked to advance those concepts. Ahead of me is a 34-inch digital touchscreen, which is now one continuous touchscreen display, unlike in the Air, which was 3 displays combined together. And further down on the dashboard, we have a landscape-oriented touchscreen rather than the vertical orientation that was seen in the Air. And Lucid worked to integrate these 2 screens so that they would function better together. Lucid envisions the Gravity's cabin to be something of a digital haven, making your charge stops more relaxing to allow you to meditate and learn and experience with different digital features to not only pass the time when you're charging, but maybe even relax and listen to some music inside the car when you're sitting at home. Lucid thinks the sound system in the Gravity might be even better than your stereo in your living room. I'm quite tall, and I'm going to, as gracefully as I can, get into the 3rd row seat of the Gravity, which is arguably its most important feature that will allow the vehicle to be suitable for a lot more families and drivers than the Air ever was. I'm a pretty tall guy, and I have a good amount of space back here. I might not want to take a long road trip in the 3rd row of the Gravity, but if you are of more average height, or if you wanted to put your kids in the back seat, they would have plenty of space, as well as comforts aided by amenities like individual air vents, cup holders, USB ports, and reading lights. So while the back seat, the 3rd row of the Gravity, is pretty good, where I really want to be is up front. So I'm going to hop in the driver's seat now, and we're going to take it for a spin. So here we are driving the scenic curving roads of Malibu, and I'm joined by Dave Lickfold, who's the Director of Vehicle Dynamics and Chassis Technology for Lucid. So he is responsible for making Lucids feel how they feel. So Dave, maybe you can tell me a little bit about your philosophy and approach in the Gravity and how you wanted to differentiate it from the Air from the driving feel perspective.
Sure, I can try. Excuse the voice. Yeah, for us, Gravity is all about a huge breadth of character. So we have different drive modes. We're in smooth drive mode right now. And this is all about low effort, high efficiency. It's super comfortable. As the name suggests, it's very smooth. And you can bang out 450 miles on a single charge, jump out and feel fresh as a daisy. And then at the other end of the spectrum, we wanted to really kind of bring in some of that character from the Porsche Cayenne GTS, the Aston Martin DBX 707. So you can switch into our more aggressive drive modes, Swift or Sprint. And then we change all of our actuators across the car. Powertrain, chassis, we have different steering calibrations, brake calibrations, damper calibrations. We have switchable 3-chamber air suspension on this car because we have the optional dynamic handling package. So we can go to a firmer spring rate as well as upping our damping. And then we have rear steer as well, which changes its calibration and makes the car much more agile. So yeah, our philosophy is breadth of character, and really it's many SUVs in one. And we also wanted to make an SUV that drives like a Lucid Air. So we're really happy with Lucid Air, especially Lucid Air Sapphire, which was kind of our latest and greatest. And a lot of that learning has gone into this car.
But I can feel there's some lineage shared with the Air, certainly. But with this Air suspension, I am detecting a bit more plushness, maybe just a bit more floatiness. This definitely feels much more like a true SUV than a sedan, which the Air is, of course. But I found it really fascinating that with this dynamic handling pack, your spring rates can be adjusted to a setting that's softer than the softest Air, and then harder or as hard as the Sapphire.
Yeah, we have a huge range of character. Yeah, like you said, we can go softer, more plush, lower ride frequencies than the most comfortable Lucid Air in smooth mode, or you jump into Swift and we can be firmer with more body control than Lucid Air Sapphire.
The ride seems quite comfortable, and what I'm really enjoying as well is my ability to hold my speed simply using the accelerator. I haven't touched the brake yet, and just using the regenerative braking, it's very smooth and intuitive to hold a safe speed and not go above the speed limit. Are there any adjustments to the regenerative braking strategy or adjustability in Gravity compared to Air?
Similar kind of strategy, really. So we have a high mode, we have a standard mode, and we have a low or off mode as well.
Are we in high mode now?
We're in high. Yeah, this is our most efficient mode for most people.
But then clearly the Gravity has some pretty substantial physical brake hardware as well. What can you tell me about that setup compared to Air?
Yeah, we do have a fantastic setup on Air. We've moved to a different supplier, so these are Brembo brakes now.
Where you're using
It was
Akebono
Akebono
before?
previously, also a very good supplier. So this is a very, very capable brake system. So up front we have, if I remember correctly, 390 millimeter diameter brake rotors with big 6-piston fixed brake calipers. On the rear we have 388 millimeter diameter brake rotors and a fixed 4-piston caliper, then with a separate parking brake as well.
Mm-hmm.
So very high performance.
I
very
would
capable.
call out that many vehicles, be they SUVs, high performance or not, typically have single piston, often have single piston rear calipers.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Was that an accommodation for the weight of the vehicle to get the braking performance that you wanted?
It's often about center of gravity height. The higher your center of gravity, the more load transfer you have forwards during braking. And when you're transferring load forwards, you're taking weight off the rear and decreasing the rear axle's braking capability because you're decreasing grip. With an EV, SUV like Gravity, we have a very low center of gravity, which means we can brake much more on the rear, which means we get the benefits when we have a fixed multi-piston, 4-piston in our case, brake caliper. And one decision we made around the brakes for Gravity, similar to Air, is to keep a hydraulically coupled brake system. So anytime you touch the brake pedal, you're getting friction braking. We don't do blending of regen and friction brakes on the B pedal.
Interesting.
And that's because we want enthusiastic drivers to be able to feel what the brakes are doing when they're touching the brake pedal.
Absolutely.
So it's always a direct hydraulic connection to the friction braking.
That's a very interesting approach because often in high performance EVs, there is sort of a transition point as you press the brake pedal as it pushes through its regenerative capacity and then activates the friction brakes, and there can be an abrupt sort of handover there.
Exactly.
So by using friction brakes with the hydraulic coupling all the time when you're using the brake pedal eliminates that problem.
Exactly. I'm not aware of a single vehicle that has done that blending well enough that we would be happy to do it. So
Certainly.
yeah, we decided anytime you touch the brake pedal, you get friction brakes.
Just in these normal driving scenarios, I get the sensation that there's ample power and torque available. Do you ramp up the amount of power and torque that the motors produce depending on drive modes?
So we're still kind of deciding that. We've got a couple of weeks more tuning, and then we'll push the software via over-the-air updates to all these cars.
How much power am I experiencing? How much power do I have available now to me?
848 horsepower.
Which is a significant amount.
It's plenty.
Which is a significant amount. Are these motors the same as what are used in Air?
Very, very similar. Yeah, so we get great economies of scale with Air. The front is now dual isolated, so you may notice almost zero powertrain noise whatsoever.
Absolutely. Yeah, in air, you know, I enjoy the motor whine that it makes. There's some engagement that comes from that, but I'm not detecting any of that in Gravity here.
Yeah, exactly. And when we made air, we knew there's quite a kind of driving enthusiast audience. And we said sometimes a bit of motor noise is good because it's engaging. We don't have a combustion engine roaring. So, you know, a little bit of gear noise is great. It's got those straight cut gear rally car type vibes. But yeah, some customers said, yeah, we'd prefer it to be a little quieter. So when it came to Gravity, we said, let's just make it silent.
Sure.
We played a little bit with gear ratios as well.
Interesting. Yeah, please talk more about that.
So the front gear ratio is the same as on most Airs, 7.06 to 1. And on the rear, we have the same gear ratio as on Air rear-wheel drive, 8.7 to 1. That's all about giving the right torque on the right axle.
Absolutely. I mean, this being an SUV, the needs of it are much different than Air. In sprint mode, I immediately feel that the weight of the steering becomes slightly heavier and the accelerator pedal becomes more aggressive, really giving me a feel of more power with less pedal applications.
So rear steer is now in its agilizing mode.
Absolutely.
It's decreasing your effective wheelbase, making the car feel more like a hot hatch, so it's helping you turn in.
Yeah, I can detect that the amount of turning that I'm getting relative to the amount of input that I put on the steering is more. It feels much more agile, and the air suspension, which is Lucid's first, the Air did not have an air suspension system, has firmed up. It's really keeping the vehicle level and stable through the corners, and there is more firmness, more impact coming through the suspension, but clearly there's a sense for luxury and comfort here still as well. Very nicely damped, very nice body control as I wind through the corners here, and there is ample power available.
So we, depending on which drive mode you're in, we do intelligent things with torque distribution, front to rear. If you're in smooth, as we said earlier, it may be running in front wheel drive, for all you know, on the freeway, but we can switch into all-wheel drive incredibly quickly, quicker than the driver can perceive, whenever they make an input or if the road asks for it. When you're in swift or sprint mode, it's more rear biased. I don't have the exact numbers with me, but it may be 60-40 biased to the rear. But then we also do very intelligent torque shuffling dynamically while you're driving. So we're targeting a certain vehicle behavior, and our powertrain controls engineers have developed and tuned these algorithms to put the torque exactly where it's needed to give you the drive that you're asking for.
Yeah, I don't think there's much question that this will have enough performance to satisfy anyone expecting high performance out of an SUV. Clearly it's a large vehicle, there's a higher center of gravity than what you would get in a true sports car, but in this realm of luxury, sporty electric SUVs, the Gravity seems like a good contender. But Dave, I think there's a good chance that most Lucid Gravity customers won't opt for the dynamic handling pack. What can buyers of base cars look forward to from a feel perspective, even if they don't choose the dynamic handling pack?
Yeah, the base car, if we can call it that, is still a fantastic car.
Still equipped with air suspension.
Yep, still has air suspension, still has very high-end adaptive Bilstein dampers, still has all of our love and care and attention in tuning all of our systems. So yeah, it's the non-dynamic handling pack car is kind of quite a purist choice in some ways.
To your point about reducing hand-over-hand movements, so far I've taken on some nice corners here, and there's been really no need for any sort of hand-over-hand maneuver, unlike what's been experienced in certain other vehicles with a slightly unconventional, more yoke-shaped steering apparatus. This feels very comfortable and direct, yet it's not twitchy either. So really just making it easy to place the car on the road, stay in the lane, and really tuck it in through some of these tighter corners, definitely aided by that rear steering system. And there is plenty of power through these corners here. Might get some traction control intervention with learnings from the Lucid Air Sapphire's bespoke traction control system. So we tried smooth to start, and we used sprint to get up the hill. And now as we traverse back to our starting point, we are in swift mode, which is, as Dave said, the in-between. And indeed, the steering is slightly lighter, the ride slightly more plush, but still very nice body control and lots of power available. I can only imagine, and I know that you can't say, but I can only imagine that there will be yet higher performance versions of the Gravity available. I doubt that there will only be one Sapphire model in the Lucid lineup. Time will tell. The Gravity is now in production at Lucid's facility in Arizona, so expect to see them on the road soon. But for the time being, there's more to say about the Gravity, so head to Motortrend.com for our first drive impressions of the Gravity and more details on this 450-mile, 3-row electric SUV.